So writer's block is an umbrella term for a lot of different issues. In order to fix yours, you're going to have to watch your process and see exactly what it is that's tripping you up. I'm going to give you 10 common sources of writer's block plus tips for how to fix them, both in the moment and long term, so hopefully you can alleviate that problem for yourself in the future. And this video is sponsored by NovelPad. Hey, NovelPad! So the first cause of writer's block on our list is perfectionism. Your problem might be perfectionism if you are rewriting the same sentence over and over again, if you're too nervous to add a scene because you're not sure if it's the best option for the whole book, if you're too worried about what readers are going to think of your very first draft, or if you find yourself rewriting scenes over and over again before you've even finished the story, it might be perfectionism. Some short-term solutions that you can implement immediately are writing without looking at the screen. You'll probably have some typos, but if you can touch type, this should be relatively easy for you. And I think most people can at this point. Can a youth or a teacher let me know if they're still teaching typing in school or if Gen Alpha is simply born knowing how? Anyway, literally not looking at the words that you're typing will stop you from getting hung up on them. The second thing is writing with a non-computer tool. This might be writing by hand because it's a lot harder to erase ink than it is to backspace, so it can kind of keep you pushing forward instead of going back to edit because it's a lot harder to do. It might be writing with something like a Neo, like I use. You don't need to buy a Neo, and you definitely don't need to buy a $700 free write. I bought this on eBay for 40 bucks and I had to repair it after like 2 uses, but I do like it. I'm just not recommending that you go out of your way to buy it like it's gonna change your life, because it won't. I also have a typewriter that I exclusively use for aesthetic poetry on Instagram because I type about 17 words a minute and I cannot handle the clicky clack. So if you're a writer who types slowly anyway, or if you grew up using a typewriter, you can find them at the thrift store for like 10 bucks. You'll probably have to do some maintenance, but that's fun. So, tip 3 is to write in sprints. Sprints are a great fix for a lot of different types of writer's block. If you're unfamiliar, a writing sprint is just when you set a short timer, 5 to 20 minutes, and you're not allowed to stop writing for the duration of that time. This helps you not be judgmental because your words don't have to be good, you just can't stop writing until it's over. If you are so distractible, I recommend cold turkey. It completely locks you out of your computer until the sprint is over. I think it's a one-time $9 fee. I will link it in the description for you because I love you. That's how we deal with perfectionism in the moment, but long-term solutions are to take control of your inner monologue. My therapy girlies are familiar with the thoughts, feelings, actions, behavior cycle. This is how we get stuck in patterns. You just have to disrupt one of those points to stop the cycle. So which one would be easiest for you? If you have a lot of control over your thoughts, you might start there. You might fake it till you make it. That would be attacking it via action. You might also look at other parts of your life to see where this might be an issue, because a solution here could be a solution there, and vice versa. The second common type of writer's block is if you are distracted. And I don't mean distracted by life, I mean distracted by your project. So if you find yourself spending a lot of time during a writing session, editing or researching or making mood boards or something, then being distracted might be your issue. It can also be avoidance for some other reasons, but if you're getting words that you like written, you're just not getting a lot of them because you're busy doing other things during your writing session, it's probably just being distracted. So your short-term solutions are to use cold turkey, which I've already mentioned. It's a program that essentially turns your computer into a typewriter, so you literally can't access the internet or anything else that you might get distracted by. Another option is something like a Neo. You can't do anything on it except type, and then you just upload your work afterward. It does plug directly into NovelPad, so do free write keyboards, just so you know. You can also try writing by hand, but I'm just not super convinced that anyone does that for more than 10 minutes at a time. You can try writing sprints here as well. It's a lot easier to sit down for 10 or 15 minutes, write the whole time, and probably get about the same amount of words in that you would have gotten in an hour or 2 hours of an unfocused writing session where you're just kind of doing whatever you want to do. And then if you want to do several sprints, hell yeah. I can usually write about 300 words of fiction in 10 minutes, so doing 3 or 4 sprints is plenty for me for one writing day. You'll probably be surprised at how much you can get done in a writing sprint. A long-term solution is to build a system where you can keep yourself on track even if you're having ideas or like to-do list items popping up during your writing session. You can use something like NovelPad's note system, where you can drop a quick note on the page for reference or add one to your library that you can link to the scene that you're working on. This way, if you have an idea for the sequel, something you need to research or fact check, or any major edit, you can take a note so you don't forget about it, and then you can do that later. The intention right now is writing. We're going to edit when we're in editing mode, and we don't make mood boards and playlists unless that is specifically what we sat down to do, which probably means that you'll never do it, but that's fine. And it's much easier to do research in batches rather than tabbing back and forth. Your writer's block could also be caused by just a lack of inspiration. If you sit down to write and just can't, you don't have ideas, or you only have a few and then you start writing it and then you're like not interested enough to finish it, or if you really don't get the point of what you're writing, it might be a lack of inspiration. So in the short term, you can borrow ideas. You might use writing prompt lists or ChatGPT to give you a story to start with. You can write fan fiction or a spinoff of a book you really like, or even one of your own. You might try short form, so a short story or poetry. If you're getting stuck on something long, like a novel or a thesis, you might swap to short form for a little bit, write some poetry, flash fiction, whatever, because sometimes finishing a project and being pleased with it is all you need to get motivated. And that's way easier to pull off with 500 words versus 120,000. And take your antidepressants. Long-term solutions include giving yourself time to be bored. As a culture, we tend to fit too much information and too many tasks and too many things to think about in one day that we don't give ourselves time to be quiet. And quiet is really important for everyone, but especially for people who are creating something. So you might regularly zone out, maybe to music, mull over your story. If you're like me and you feel the need to put on a podcast or an audiobook or something in any silence, don't do that. Let your subconscious cook while you're cooking or cleaning or walking your dog or whatever. You might try something like The Artist's Way, which is a self-led course that's meant to help you respark your creativity and kind of connect to your why so that you can establish an overall purpose for whatever your art is. I will link that for you as well. Number 4 is just having trouble getting started. So if you have all these great ideas, but you just can't sit and write because you don't know where to start, this is a niche problem, but some of you get it. So short-term solutions, use a template. You can find lots of these. I'll link however many genres I can find in the description for you. You could also skip the beginning of your story, write something in the middle, or write the end, and then you can go back and write the beginning after you've sort of established the narrative for yourself. And long-term solutions are just practice and discipline, unfortunately. You might try scheduling writing sessions and really forcing yourself to write something in that half hour or however much time you're setting aside. Repetition is a really good way to kind of train your brain to do what you want it to do when you want it to do it. I mean, your brain is also a wild lizard, but to some extent. Sometimes writer's block comes from no motivation, which is similar to no inspiration, but not. If it's not particularly the beginning of a project that you're getting hung up on, but you just can't really be bothered to write, even though you theoretically really want to, it just seems overwhelming and undoable and you can't find the motivation to do it. Short-term solutions, take your antidepressants. We just went over this. But for real, find out what motivates you. Is it word count goals, having little treats, sharing your writing with a friend? If you are progress motivated, NovelPad has an in-app tracking system for your goals. Let's take a look at it real quick. So here's the goal tracking page. You can set your goal, when you want to accomplish it, which days of the week you are writing more, less, or not at all, then hit save. You get this nice little graph to track your progress, and it distributes your target word count per day based on your timeline and your weekly writing schedule. And if something changes, like you're going on a writing retreat or you take a week off, you just add that to your schedule and it will recalculate those numbers for you. Also, if you don't hit exactly the number of words you needed for that day, you can set the schedule to adapt to your progress and it will automatically update your numbers for the remainder of your timeline. Long-term solutions for no motivation is get down to why you're writing. The Artist's Way might be helpful for that, but one great exercise is to build an ideal reader. Who are you writing for? What do you want them to get out of it? If you're totally blanking, you've never thought of this before, you don't know where to start, think of yourself 10 years ago, or as a child or a teenager or a young adult. What would have helped you to read then, or what would have entertained you, depending on your genre? What do you want your writing to accomplish for your reader? And who is that reader? So literally write a description of this person. You might find an image to represent them, describe them, flesh them out like a character, and that can give you something tangible that you're trying to accomplish with your writing, which is pretty motivating, I think. If you're writing children's stories, throw in a picture of your nephew and write for him. Good shortcut, but figure out who it's for and write for that person. And an absolute classic for writer's block is fear. This can come in a lot of different forms. It can be fear of failure, fear of success, fear of humiliation, fear of a particular person reading what you're writing. You might be scared of your own internal critic. This is very common. Don't worry about it too hard. read The Artist's Way. Some short-term solutions for this could be using a pen name. So if you're planning to publish or you're posting in an online forum or something, a pen name can be a good way to expose you to some feedback and just in general other people reading your work without needing to be scared of the repercussions. By the way, there will likely be very few repercussions either way. I mean, I don't know what you're writing. But this can be an easier way to introduce yourself into the world of writing and people reading your stuff. So it's just a much lower entry barrier. And you could keep that pen name forever, or you can just use it to kind of ease yourself into it until you're ready to put your own name on it. The second option, this is also for newer writers, is realize if you're not ready to share your writing at all. It can be really helpful to write for yourself with the understanding that no one is ever going to read it. You might eventually show it to someone, but while you're writing, try convincing yourself that no one ever will. Just write for yourself and practice and develop your stories. Even later on, when you've already been publishing or whatever that looks like for you, it can be helpful to have a project that's just for this. I call it a junk novel. Some people call it a trunk novel. It's just this thing that you never expect will ever see the light of day. It's a good place to experiment and kind of let yourself loose like a dog in a field with a lot of mud. Yesterday I was thinking about mud pies real hard. We had like this great patch of mud on the side of our house when I was growing up, and when's the last time I made a mud pie? There's always going to be a last time that you do that. So I'm about to go make some mud. Anyway, the long-term solutions for fear are growing your confidence with practice, being kind to yourself, accepting and learning from your mistakes, and slowly letting people that you trust read your work. It's also okay to be uncomfortable. You'll get more comfortable as you go, but you might just have to bite it for a while. Also, it's never going to be super duper easy. It'll be less hard sometimes. Related to that, another block can be self-judgment. This is when you're writing, you look at it, you hate it, you delete it all, you write a different scene, or you abandon projects entirely because you think that they aren't good enough and they aren't fixable. Short-term solutions include free writing. This is a skill you can practice where you basically just write whatever, a stream of consciousness. And you can do this for fiction as well, where you just go. You don't second guess anything, you just vomit words. You might have a few salvageable lines from it, but this exercise can just flick on your creativity. One of the biggest components of The Artist's Way is morning pages, where you just stream of conscious for 3 pages, like practically first thing in the morning. And a lot of people find that helpful. The second option is literally just doing it anyway. That's stepping in at the action portion of the behavior cycle. Just write it. If you're a chronic deleter of things, try setting it aside in a different document instead of throwing it into the fire like you're Dakota Fanning. Long-term solutions, again, be nice to yourself. You're in there all the time. Having a negative inner monologue is like having a shitty roommate and the lease never ends, and they're drinking all your milk. The second thing is to challenge your beliefs. If you keep writing, you will get better, but whatever your skill level, tearing yourself down is not gonna help. This comes back to cognitive distortions. You might try books or a professional that can help guide you through replacing those less helpful thoughts and conceptualizations with something more conducive to a positive relationship with writing. I didn't think I'd be recommending therapy more than once in this video, but number 8 is overwhelm. If you sit down to work on your project and you just can't figure out what to tackle first, you're losing track of plots and characters, the timeline is getting muddy, you revise a scene and then lose it and can't find it and try to rewrite it. I used to do that all the time, and the rewrite is never as good as the one you lost. You might be suffering from project overwhelm, especially if you're writing in a genre like fantasy, where there's so much to keep track of because you're building a world, or if you're writing a series in any genre and you have to manage an overall arc as well as individual books. It can just be too much to juggle. Personally, I struggle to juggle 3 things. 2 is kind of my max. My suggestion to address this problem is for both the short and the long term, because there's really only one thing to do outside of improving your mindset, and that's to get organized. I'm going to show you some of my favorite organizational features from NovelPad, so you might consider trying them out, or it can give you ideas of how to structure your novel plan in some other program. NovelPad is my favorite sponsor because they let me say shit like that. Here are 4 NovelPad organizational features that I think can really help you out here. The coolest little element of NovelPad is the scene card. So these cards contain information like a description, the character POV, the date, plots connected with the scene, and if you have something to track besides that pretty thorough list of information, there are customizable color tags. You can click and drag these dudes around for quick rearranging, and you can access your different scene revisions. So here you can view revisions side by side and change which one appears in your manuscript. The unlimited revisions will all stay connected to that scene, so you'll never lose them, and you can easily swap them out to see which one reads better with the rest of the book. Next up, NovelPad Notes. This is totally customizable. You can organize your notes into folders and use all of the formatting options from the drafting page. Most notably, saying that is that you can link notes to other elements like characters, scenes, plots, other notes, and tap this thumbtack icon back here to split screen for easy reference while you're drafting. The third helpful function is how you can track plots, characters, and locations. If we go to those boards, every scene involving that plot, character, or occurring in that location will appear here in order. This makes it so much simpler to do things like tighten up your character arcs or find plot holes because you can read every scene involved with that thing in order. Pro tip, you can use character tracking to track anything. Say you have an important animal or object of significance. Let's say you're writing the Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants fanfiction. You can track the pants. Number 4 is customizable scene tags. I already kind of mentioned this, but it's cool enough to talk about again. So go to your settings page to choose colors and labels for your customizable scene tags. Then you can assign them to your scene cards on the chapter board. It's pretty sick. Use this for tracking mood, writing phase, scenes to move or expand on, physical objects that appear in the scene, like pants. You can try NovelPad for free right now. No credit card, no commitment, through the link in my description. I've been using them for years. It's a great program run by great people who are very nice to me. So clicking on the link would be cool of you to do. Thanks for listening. Moving on. Number 9 is a lack of time or a perceived lack of time. Obviously, some of us have multiple jobs and school and kids and parents to take care of and disabilities and other non-negotiable crunches on our time, but for the most part, we do have the time. We're just avoiding it, probably for one of the reasons we've already listed. So implementing the changes we've discussed might fix this problem for you, but if not, a short-term solution is have a fully locked-in writing schedule, even if it's 20 minutes once a week. A lot of the times, it just comes down to convincing yourself that you're gonna show up, you are going to be in writing mode, we are focusing on this, we do have time for it. If this is so hard, start small. 20 minutes a week. Just make sure that you're focusing through that full 20 minutes. And as you get into the swing of this, you might expand that or have it several times a week. The long-term solution for this is to treat writing as a priority rather than something that you just do in your extra time. Our lives stretch to fit around what we choose to prioritize. So if writing is important to you, prioritize it. That sounds really simple because it is. Almost everything is, turns out. The last cause of writer's block that I'm going to address is a lack of self-care. I'm so serious that this turns out to be most writers' problems in my experience. Especially because most writers are either neurodivergent, mentally ill, or both. Ka-chow. That's just who seems the most drawn to creative careers, I guess, and perhaps the most prone to delusion, which can be a helpful trait in this field. So, if you are personally suffering, it will change how effective you are at anything, including writing. The solutions are gonna depend on you. If you have ADHD or something similar with executive function problems, you might need to make a checklist for yourself that you go through before you even open a document. Are you fed? Are you rested? Are you comfy? Are you clean? Are you in a distraction-free zone? Did you let the dog out? Sometimes we just have stuff happening in our lives that distract us, or we push something off without addressing it. This all comes up when you're trying to create something. So long-term, deal with your issues. Sorry. If you're super stressed out about a fight that you're having with a friend, address that sooner rather than later. If you are grieving something or you're having a big life change, process that, because if you just try to hammer through it and keep working without giving that problem the space that it needs, you're damaging your mindset, and that will result in less effective writing sessions and less effective everything. Another short-term solution is to swap projects or incorporate what you're dealing with into your writing. So if your thoughts are absolutely consumed with this problem or person or event, it can be pretty cathartic to fictionalize it. Sometimes it even allows your conscious and or subconscious mind to work through that problem, and you're keeping up with the practice of writing in a way that can benefit you rather than trying to swim against the tide and write a super happy romance novel while you're going through a divorce. You might just need to be writing angsty poetry for a little bit, and that's all right. Or you might make your protagonist go through a divorce for their tragic backstory, whatever that looks like for you. And lastly, you might take a break. This gets harder if you are a professional author already and it's most or all of your income. But as much as is reasonable, give yourself time and space to recover if writing just isn't happening right now. Beating yourself up about it or pushing yourself beyond what is reasonable for you will just cause long-term damage and burnout. And then you'll have to spend more time recovering from that. And it makes you die quicker. The main points you should take from this video are: challenge yourself without punishing yourself. Become more observant of your habits and thoughts, and then keep in mind that that little behavior cycle has thoughts, feelings, and actions. So try to change things until you find the weak point in that cycle, and you can disrupt it from there. Okay, those are my tips for writer's block. Don't leave. If this video was helpful for you, and you feel like it would be so helpful for me if you click the link in my description and claim your free novel pad trial. No commitment, no credit card. You can download all of your work afterward if you decide it's not for you. Very low stress, low effort, low learning curve. I even have a few videos about novel pad posted if you would like some guidance to get started. But again, low learning curve. It's pretty intuitive. You've got this. Okay, thank you for listening. See you next time. Bye.